All right, how's it going, everybody? Thanks for joining tonight. I know it's been a couple weeks since I've done anything, but wanted to get back in. It feels good to get back to doing some things, and I think we've got a fun one tonight. Tonight will be interesting from the perspective of, I think, you guys learning and understanding a little bit more about just something that's a little bit different, unique, that's not something necessarily from the big boys, all of that, but this will be fun. When Dan and I got these bottles, we started talking like immediately about, everything that kind of went into this, and it really got us thinking. And then all of a sudden we thought, well, what better than to have, the two guys that are behind the brand, on to kind of share all of their experiences. So we're lucky that we've got them on tonight. And as you guys can see, bottom of the screen, from left to right, Rick, Talley, Owen, Locke, two of the guys, or the two guys, I should say, that are behind the brand Locke Co. Guys, thanks for joining tonight. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, awesome. So we were kind of chatting a little bit before, and I guess why don't we start off a little bit with maybe a little bit about you guys, and we'll kind of just go from there if that works for you.
Yeah, perfect. So as you mentioned, Owen and I were the co-founders here at Locke Co Distilling. We grew up here in Colorado together. We're both Colorado natives, went to high school together, played lacrosse together, continued grad school together, and now we're making whiskey together. So it's been a great path, and we're excited to be on the market and sharing our whiskey.
That's awesome. So Owen, what about you?
Yeah, so Rick and I, growing up together, causing trouble in high school. We lived in Denver, kind of one of the craft beer meccas. So back in '95, when I was 15, I guess I just aged myself right there. But back in '95, I figured out they would sell you all the equipment to make beer, and my folks were like, "Cool science, get out of here. I'm sure that tastes great." So we started brewing beer and doing that. And part of the reason my parents were okay with that is I'm lucky to say I'm a 6th generation Coloradan. So my family came out here a long time ago. My grandpa made bathtub gin back in the day, and my 4 times great grandfather had one of the first liquor stores in downtown Denver before it burnt down. So there's like pictures of that in like the Colorado History Museum. So it was kind of in the blood, in the family. So I think they were like, okay, this makes sense that he can go play with that. So started brewing beer in high school, kept brewing beer in college, and then Rick and I kind of reconnected in grad school together, and his good buddy got us jobs working for Jim Beam. So we kind of learned the whiskey trade doing that, and kind of had this unique kind of homebrew experience. And so we kind of understood that you have to make good beer to make good whiskey. And then we bought this still, you can see over my shoulder here, about 11 years ago, and started playing in the garage. We're in my garage right now, kind of where it all first started. So it kind of makes sense to get back to the roots. But yeah, we kind of started playing in the garage and just having fun doing it, and then turned it into a business.
Yeah, that's the best time when that happens, when you can turn a passion that you love into a business. That's the name of the game right there. So
yeah, it was about 6 years into us distilling. More and more friends and family kept asking for the mason jars of our rye whiskey, and we're like, maybe other people will enjoy this. Let's put together a business plan.
Yeah, well, those are the good ones. So let me ask you this, I guess, regarding the whiskey itself, if we kind of dive into that a little bit. So I guess first, like, why rye whiskey, and then in terms of what it is that you do with the Aspen wood, why those combos? What was it that kind of got you kind of down that path?
Yeah, sure. I think again, with like the homebrew experience, I always kind of liked rye grain. It was a little bit more complex to brew, so kind of getting in there, and then again working from Jim Beam, just kind of developing our palate. It seems to be somewhat of the trend. People kind of start drinking with like Jack Daniels or something, and then they start working into some good bourbons, and then their palates develop, and they want some of that high rye bourbon, and then kind of go over and start dabbling in the rye world. And so we kind of had that similar path in education. We're like, man, we really like the spice of the rye. It's just Rick and I love being in the mountains, fly fishing and skiing and snowboarding, and that rye just warms you up so good when it's in a flask. Yeah. So it's kind of like, this makes sense with our lifestyle, what we like to do. So we just kind of became big fans of rye, rye whiskey guys. And so that was kind of why rye to start with. When we started in the garage, we did some other batches and stuff, but the rye just kept turning out really well. And, so 11 years ago, took a mason jar from the garage here up to my family's property outside of Fairplay, Colorado. It's right near, like, if you ever watched the movie, the TV show South Park. Right near where South Park takes place. That's how we give people the landmark, right? And so we have about 30 acres. It's off the grid, and it's really high in altitude. So the only thing that grows up there is aspen trees. And we have this old cabin, so we shut it down every fall for the winter. And we're up there drinking by the fire, passing this mason jar full of moonshine rye around. And then just threw a chunk of charred aspen into that mason jar. Left it on a southern-facing windowsill, so hot days, cool nights got that wood to really work. We came back this spring, we're like, this tastes great. Glad we were drinking by the fire with friends. Let's keep doing this.
Yeah, we're, as Owen said, sitting around the fire, and their property is about 30 acres up there, and tons of aspen glazes, as you said. So all the firewood was aspen wood. We knew what charred oak does to the whiskey, and we're like, what will the charred aspen do? So just put in a chunk and let it sit there for the winter.
Yeah, well, and it's cool. Like, again, we were talking a little bit about how things evolve and how things begin, and I suppose if, someone doesn't decide to toast a piece of aspen, toss it in that mason jar and let it sit there, I mean, maybe the brand never gets to the point where it is now, or maybe it goes in a different path. So it's always interesting to see how a brand, not only starts, but how it evolves. And I think it's kind of cool, like how that whole part started, for you guys. I guess if we can, let's talk a little bit about, what it is that you do with the aspen wood, like, the barrels that you guys have, the whiskey that you've got, and kind of that whole package, and really kind of how it gets to the point where it ends up in the bottle, how it all really evolves. So.
For sure. So that mason jar Owen was talking about, it aged in a small oak barrel for a while before he brought it up to the cabin, and before he added that aspen stave. It sat up there in that windowsill, as you mentioned, for about 5 months. And when we came back up in the spring to open the cabin, we took out a sip off that mason jar, and so we figured out we were onto something. And so, we just dropped in an aspen stave, like a charred aspen stave. We literally pulled it right out of the campfire. And once we figured out we liked what that charred aspen was adding and imparting into the whiskey, we started thinking back to our high school science classes and how the cell structure, the xylem and the phloem, are designed to move nutrients and moisture from the soil up the trunk to the tree. So we started cutting the aspen into these discs. So if you look at the grain, the whiskey can go in and out of the grain just like the water and nutrients can. So once we switched from the aspen stave to that aspen disc, it was really imparting a lot stronger notes than we imagined it would. So we had to start balancing the rye mash bill and the amount of rye grain to compensate for how much those notes were being imparted from those charred aspen discs. So the aspen stave was the aha moment, and then we started just playing around with thinking back to our high school science teachers and what they taught us.
Yeah, so to kind of get a little further in the whole process, so we aged the rye 2 years in 30-gallon oak barrels, brand new oak barrels. Char levels 2, 3, 4, and 5. So after that 2-year period, we'll blend all that whiskey into large, 300-gallon totes, and then we'll drop in charred versions of the aspen. We'll hand char each piece, and then that floats in the whiskey for another 8 months.
So here's what they look like, all nice and charred up.
Wow.
So when you guys were actually doing the charring, how long did it take you guys to figure out what the perfect level was? Because obviously it gives you, the different char levels give off different, flavors. But how long did it take you guys to actually figure out what was the perfect amount?
Yeah, so I think each piece is around char level 2. I would say some get a little bit more charred and some not. We're imperfect humans doing this by hand. But, so that was part of the char level, how deep you want it. And that just took playing around with different char levels. But one of the pieces that was extremely difficult for us was how long to season the aspen.
Yeah.
And so like when you cut down a fresh aspen tree, it's really bitter. And so we season it for a whole about 12 months up in Fairplay to the wind, the rain, the snow, so that it dries out to a nice seasoned piece that's really consistent. And then we hand char it. So a whole year of seasoning before that aspen's usable. And that was the biggest part of R&D is we tried 3 months, 6 months. And those bitter notes weren't giving us like that sweetness to round out the whiskey we were looking for. So that was one of the biggest things for us in the R&D process was, okay, let's try this batch. Let's try that one, see how this aspen works. So you just end up using, mason jars full of charred aspen, and you have like 20 of them lined up with different dates and months of char and seasoning, right? So you got like a 3 months, it's lightly charred, really charred, and in the middle, and then you kind of pick out from there where to go. So it's kind of a scientific process.
Yeah.
And it's also like once you start finding one you like, you're like, okay, let's go down that path.
Yeah.
You can kind of hone in and laser focus a little bit. But a couple of things to note about the aspen too, we use a vegetable-based bar and chain oil when we chainsaw each piece, so no petrol gets on the wood while it's seasoning. And it's a very sustainable process. It helps spread out the aspen groves on the property and prevent some fire damage out there. But spreading out those aspen groves, aspen trees are all one large organism. They're all connected by the root system. So it really helps cross-pollinate the other aspen groves down valley.
Yeah, so when we started harvesting the aspen off the family property, some of the brothers were like, wait, are you guys going to be clear cutting our family property? Like, we're culling the forest just like you call a herd. We're actually strengthening that grove. And as Owen mentioned, they're one connected living organism, and it's actually the largest living organism on Earth is the aspen grove.
Is aspen something that grows fairly quickly as well?
It does. It goes fairly quickly, and at higher altitudes, we see a lot larger trees. And so our property is about 10,000 feet, so 2 miles high, and up there they grow much larger than they do even down in Denver at a mile high. So we get nice, huge, thick aspen trees up there that we can make into the whiskey. You can kind of see this little bar sign behind me that says Locke Co. That's actually from one of our trees, and that's pretty big compared to like some of the normal aspens you see that are 3, 6, 8 inches in diameter. So using those aspen and getting consistent source is really, really great for us.
Have you guys ever kind of experimented with like what it is that altitude does to like a whiskey versus aging high altitude versus like low, and like even with the same type of like aspen, same barrel, does altitude for you guys play a role in what it implements into the whiskey for you guys?
So that's some of the R&D that we're continually doing. We're working with a ranch called Three Forks Ranch. It's just north of Steamboat, across the border into Wyoming. We're harvesting aspen off their property and making a unique limited release from whiskey from their aspen trees, as well as starting to come smaller diameters, younger trees. So those are all some of the fun things that we're continuing to play with to have some future releases, future products.
And I think one of the things with Colorado, you get such a diverse kind of climate and weather pattern, right? So it's not just hot or just humid, so you get that interaction with the wood. It expands and contrasts a lot. So I think it's the overall kind of climate of here in the Rocky Mountains that helps kind of, get that whiskey to work with the wood so much. But we do kind of continually keep playing and coming up with these little science projects. So like you said, the altitude, if we sent the aspen wood and aged it, down in Florida or something, it might taste different. Yeah. You're going to have to help us with that.
What calls we've gotten from neighbors and friends and family being like, hey, I got an aspen tree I need taken out. Come over and get it. Right?
Yeah. So what was the kind of the deciding factor to age in 30s versus like a 53? Like you guys did some experimenting to see like how both would kind of play and how the wood would react?
Yeah, absolutely. So we like the 30-year-old barrels, or 30 gallon for, I wish we had 30s, 30 gallons. The surface area we like in there, we knew we were going to have a younger whiskey kind of to the market. Again, it's aged 2 years in those barrels. That surface area contact, we knew it was going to be something for us. And we had played with some smaller barrels kind of when we started in the garage. and some of that was kind of over oaked. And so we knew we needed kind of something right in the middle that would be a little different. And using those new barrels and those char levels, we're able to get those caramels and vanillas that we want in there to complement from the oak. So we just think that's like, kind of the sweet spot for us. Something a little different. Not everybody's using 30 gallons. They're becoming more and more popular, but our whole idea was, we kind of stumbled into this aspen wood. It's something unique and different. Let's continue to be unique and different.
Yeah, questions when we're doing tastings or hand sales or staff trainings about, you're using 30 gallons to speed up the aging. And that's not the case. That's the one thing with whiskey or aging you can't change is the time factor. And so what we say is we're just aging our whiskey differently. We're not trying to recreate someone else's recipe. We're trying to innovate and create something that we really enjoy. And so, again, that higher wood ratio to whiskey ratio in the 30s, more so than those more standard 53 gallons, was just a sweet spot. And at those 2 years is really, really tasty. But we do have some more other limited releases going to be coming out in the fall that we've been able to hold back and age a little bit longer with that 30 gallons. So it's been really, really fun to play with those as well.
Well, and it's kind of nice that, being on the smaller scale of things, that allows you to kind of test a lot of those different things and see what's working, for you. I mean, you're not having to, do a test batch of 100,000 barrels just to get an idea of what it's going to be. You can, look at this. You guys are literally using mason jars with rye whiskey. When you think of that in context, and in comparison to beam that you guys had mentioned before, it's not even apples and oranges. It's some other fruit and I don't even know what else. But that's the cool part, I think, about some of the smaller distilleries is what it allows you to do. Yeah. And I think, honestly, what you guys do is a super influence on the big boys because they kind of look at you as a little bit of the test market and what's kind of working. And you guys really push the envelope and get some really fun and interesting things out there that a lot of people aren't getting a chance to try on a daily basis. So, doing these kinds of things is the fun part because it exposes, your brand to people maybe outside of outside of Colorado or whatever, and that wouldn't know about what it is you're doing. So that's the fun part for me. And I think with what it is you guys do in kind of crafting these whiskey is it's important for other people, I think, in the whiskey industry to know about what it is guys like you do. So people catch on to trends so quickly, it seems, that there's no saying that somebody else couldn't try to go and do what you guys are doing, maybe with a different type of wood. But I did have a quick question for you guys as far as the tasting notes. Could you guys share maybe what your tasting notes, what you guys pick up on this whiskey, just so the viewers have an idea of maybe how what your guys palates pick up?
Yeah, definitely. So being a 95% rye and a 90 proof, you're going to get those wonderful. For me, I get the wonderful spicy, heat notes up front. And then as it mellows on my palate and lingers on my palate, that's where I pick up the charred aspen discs. And what I feel it imparts is a wonderful, unique kind of light brown sugars, a little bit of fig, some interesting cinnamon notes. We'll often get questions like, are you adding cinnamon to your whiskey? And it's like, no, that's all coming from that char. So that's what I pick up. And Owen picks up some other unique qualities, I think.
Yeah, I think there's also almost like an herbal grass tone to it a little bit in there. It's hard for me to pinpoint that exactly, but almost like an earth tone to it. Again, I think that's from the aspen wood. And some of those vanillas and caramels we're obviously getting from the oak barrels, and then the spicy, peppery notes from the high rye.
Yeah.
So you're definitely gonna know it's a rye, but it's gonna be a lot more rounded, especially at that proof and at that grain mash bill. We kind of see some of those high ryes as a big flavor and a big burn, and ours seems to be a little bit more rounded, a little bit more smooth. Again, cutting that aspen wood and that disc cut allows the whiskey to go in and out of that wood so much more easily, the whole surface area of that disc. So it mellows that rye out. It's just purifying it and making it really smooth. We get called the bourbon drinker's rye, or the entryway into rye whiskey. People are trying to taste it, no, I don't like rye, and then they have a sip and they're like, I guess I do like rye. This is so we like that, and we also like that it's well rounded with the spice. It holds up well in cocktails.
Very well rounded.
So your Manhattans, your old fashions. We like to do the perfect Manhattan, where we use sweet and dry vermouth, and we'll actually use the aspen wood that was aging the whiskey. Those charred discs, we'll stack them in a carafe and fill that up, and that's what we take to us to do tastings. Since we just have the product, we bring the whiskey so people taste it neat. We'll bring an ice bucket so they can see how it opens up, and then they can taste an Aspen-aged Manhattan cocktail, which is a lot of fun. Because then we can show them, as Rick did earlier, that charred piece of aspen wood. And people are like, oh, I'm a visual learner. They just understand what we're doing so much more. So that's a huge part of who we are, is we want to educate people just like you guys on what's going on out there. Having that example, that char, just you can see the light turn on in people's heads.
That's honestly the best part, because there's so many people that have that disconnect as to how it's made, why, where, all of these things, where it has to be made. So when people get a chance to see that, you guys are, what it is that you're doing and putting the spin on it that you do, I think it resonates a lot with people where, this is really interesting that all of these flavors, that nothing's artificially done. It's all done through, just different techniques and all of that. So, for me, the one thing I got immediately was this bit of a lemongrass and even a toasted marshmallow that I get on some of this stuff. And I'm sure it's just the influence of some of that aspen, but it's really rounded out. And like we were saying before we even went live, you still get that nice underlying 95.5 rye and that spice. Mm-hmm. And then you get the other components of what that aspen is really doing. And I think, like you guys said, the cool part about getting people in front of you to show what this is for people to understand what that piece of aspen is truly doing to that rye whiskey itself.
Yeah, and that's, as Owen said, we'll bring these discs and we'll bring the staves and show people all right, for a barrel, it's got to go in and out against the grain versus when you cut the discs, it goes with the grain. So not only does it get more flavors, but again, it removes some of those harsher notes, and that's why it can be such a smooth rye at a 32-month aged rye.
Hey, Scotty, Whiskey Mountains had a question for them.
Okay, yeah, we'll fire away. What do we got here? Do you see it, Dan? Oh, here it is. Here it is. All right.
Got it. Okay.
Let me get this thing off real quick. Hang on one second here.
I'm enjoying my whiskey so much. I gotta be careful here.
Cheers.
Yeah, for me, my tasting notes, I get a lot of, and we spoke about this prior to going live, but I pick up a lot of black licorice, some anise. There is a lot of sweetness in here too, and as I had said earlier, it really reminds me of some of the old school ryes from the 40s and 50s that had that licorice kind of influence to them, and it's absolutely delicious. Very, very easy to drink, very sweet. I never tried it in a cocktail, but I will make sure tomorrow evening I try that out. So
if it's a warm evening, my wife and I, one of our go-to drinks with rye in the summertime is doing a little bit of ginger beer, a little bit of soda water to cut the sweetness, our rye whiskey, and a little bit of lemon juice. And it's a wonderful, wonderful summer cocktail to make with rye whiskey.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, so here's the question. So this is from Adriana, Whiskey Mountains, who, by the way, has a really interesting and cool whiskey channel where she does all of her hiking up in the mountains in Utah. So she got a lot of the scenery stuff, very much like where you guys are. But anyway, so hopefully I don't butcher this thing. I don't know. I have no idea. If you guys can see this question, feel free to address it. Can you see the question?
Yes, we got it here. So it's I think it says they talked about having to tweak the rye mash bill because of how exposing the xylem and phloem of the aspen affected it. Did they have to increase it to compete? So we increased it because we wanted to balance out the rye. We wanted a rye whiskey. So originally it started at that 80% rye mash bill, and we moved over from the discs, from the stave to the discs. We got so much more flavor imparted from that aspen wood. We were losing that strong rye undertone, and so upping that rye allowed us to kind of have the balance that we were looking for. So that was the main reason to go that way in the mash bill.
Yeah, I mean, it was getting to the point of sweetness where it was like, did I just drink bourbon? Which, again, we love bourbon, but we're trying to make a rye. We're losing that pepper, that spice, that heat that we love from rye.
It was like trying to make an IPA and ended up with a pale ale, right? You're like, I wanted the bitter, I wanted the spice, you know? So it's one of those things. And, you know, part of our story is, you know, the first time we started this still, the first time I ran it, I scorched the wort. First time through it, I'm like, what am I doing? This is, you know, just waste a bunch of money, you know. It wasn't like we had the best white dog out the door day one.
Yeah.
I think that's something, you know, people should appreciate is like, you got to play around to get there. And
you got it.
A lot of friends coming over to the garage, you know, having a still in your garage is a great way to make friends with your neighbors.
Yeah.
You know, first 2 years, friends are like, this is really cool, but, you know, this is taking my hair off type of thing. And then you keep going and refining your processes, our processes with the Aspen. And like, as Brooke mentioned earlier, 6 years in, we're getting orders for mason jars for Christmas and holidays. And we're like, you know, I think we don't want to be 80 years old looking back at each other like, man, we should have done this. What could we have done? So that's what we're curious, right?
Got sorry, Scott, real quick. 2 other questions. JG asked if you guys are only selling in Colorado. And then the other question from Sugar Kitty is, what are their favorite whiskeys?
Well, I'll take the first one. We started in Colorado. We started self-distributing. Colorado is a very lucky state. That's why you saw craft brewing take off, is because producers can self-distribute their products. So started in Colorado, expanded in a little bit into Wyoming. That's a control state, so you can actually buy it through the state control stores there. And then we expanded into Connecticut. So Connecticut, a lot of people ask, why Connecticut? It's a smaller state. It has great whiskey sales, and being that as Owen said, we're like, as the definitions actually fall into play, we're not a micro distillery, we're a nano distillery. The batch that just hit the market is under 100 barrels, which is the classification to be a nano distillery. So we're in those 2 states, as well as you can get us through caskers. So that's like the wholesale equivalent of Flaviar, or connection to Flaviar. So you can try us through Flaviar and then buy us through caskers online as well.
And that's about 17 states on caskers. I don't have them all memorized, but we can get you that information for sure. But so those are the states in the online that we're in now. Hoping and looking to expand to some more states. Just trying to find, you know, the right partners to do so, and making sure we have, you know, the inventory to match that market. You know, it's hard for us to be like, yeah, we want to go everywhere and share the story, but we have to be kind of specific, and it's got to be the right fit for us to move forward.
You know, it's interesting with Colorado. You know, we're in about 420, 430 accounts, and people, even though it's easy to get in Colorado, people kind of are like, oh, well, I want to try something that's, you know, small batch. It's like, you can't get smaller than 90 barrels. I mean, it's pretty damn small, but people kind of forget when you can just go down to some of the bigger stores and pick up a bottle any day you want. So we'll get questions from our Connecticut distributor, like, can we get some smaller batch stuff? And it's like, just remind people how small we actually are.
Shout out to Marco and Propel, by the way.
Yeah, Propel Beverage.
Yeah, that's always the interesting part in terms of, you know, that term that everybody uses, you know, small batch or whatever it is. I mean, it's so subjective based on, I suppose, the size of your distillery or your brand or whatever it may be. Because you guys, so batch 3 that you're releasing was a blend of about how many barrels did you say?
90 barrels.
Yeah. So batch 1, which we laid down in January 2016, let age for those 32 months. So we didn't hit shelves till September 2018, and that was 32 of those 30-gallon barrels. So we got about 856 bottle cases out of those. You know, after the 2 years, we're getting about 23 gallons of our whiskey out of those 30-gallon barrels. Then we lose a little bit to the Aspen discs. Batch 2 is 64 barrels, and the batch 3 is 115, but we only dumped 90. So we were able to find enough inventory to hold some of those back, which we'll be releasing in the fall, which will be a 3-year in those 30-gallon oaks, and then an additional 8 months with those Aspen discs.
Cool. Interesting. All right, so here's another question from Adriana. So do you guys see yourselves making bourbon eventually, or feel the Aspen too sweetening for the bourbon?
Yes, so we have 2 bourbon barrels aging right now. They're probably not going to be ready till next year, so we're going to start kind of putting our toe in that water. You We'll see how it goes to see how that sweetness is. But so far, we're excited with some of the mason jar experimentation that we've done out there. But as far as product on the shelves, we'll have a couple barrels, but it'll be pretty small. And then hopefully that goes well and we'll expand down the road. We do have some, as Rick mentioned, some single barrel stuff, some small batch limited release, including stuff finished with some wood that we've harvested on the western slope of Colorado. Again, in that disc cut structure to get as much flavor out of it as we can, but some peach, cherry, apricot, and pear wood, as well as some pecan and walnut wood as well.
Wow.
I'm looking forward to those. I can't wait for that.
That'll be really interesting. I mean, it's cool to see, because everything that we all know, it's, we've got everything that's stored in the standard kind of white oak, barrels, containers, whatever you want to call it. But to be able to put that spin on with some different woods and see kind of what those impart on those whiskeys is a really interesting and kind of fun thing. I mean, as a whiskey, enthusiast and lover, it's cool to see some of these different finishing woods really impart some cool different flavors on some of these whiskeys. So
yeah, we're really excited about some of these limited releases, but like we said before, the one thing you can't change is time, so we gotta wait.
I think there was another question in there. What do we like to drink outside?
Yeah, your favorite whiskeys.
Our own stuff. So that's what we say. If things go wrong, we'll always have a lifetime supply of really good
That's
whiskey.
right.
But the great thing about Colorado is there's so many distilleries. Again, the laws allow you to open it up. It creates a lot of competition, but that kind of strives for good products. So some of our friends in the industry are making some great stuff out here. Mythology Distilling, Bear Creek, Deer Hammer. A lot of local guys that we know personally are making some really fun stuff. Some weeded bourbons out there from Bear Creek, Old Elk, some stuff like that. Me personally, some of the Blantons and Taylor. If you can find those, get them while you can. It's hard to find out here in Colorado, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
That's great stuff for us to celebrate with, and kind of a special allotted stuff out there. Again, more the rye products and expressions out there is what I lean towards, just because that's what I like, and I know that's what Rick likes as well.
Yeah, you like that nice spiciness. That's it's kind of cool look. I mean, you got the spice from the rye, the sweetness from that aspen in terms of what it does. So you got kind of a cool combo right there. So
yeah, the complexity that the rye grain allows us to experiment with is just perfect for our palates for sure.
It's a nice play because that was the thing when I first got into it. You're always a little curious about what that first taste is going to be. Once you kind of get your palate acclimated, you realize, wow, there's really actually some nice layers here to a 90 proof, younger-ish whiskey. But that's the thing, it doesn't always have to be super aged to, present those kind of complexities to a whiskey. So that's something to try to get people educated on too, that it doesn't always have to be ultra aged in order to have that complexity to something. So
that's the great thing about things opening back up here in Colorado. Owen and I can actually get back out and do staff trainings and do these tastings, where so much of our success in those first 18 months was because Owen and I were out there talking about our whiskey to everybody and anybody, and we'd get people that, as Owen mentioned before, like, I'm a bourbon drinker, I don't want rye, and they'll try it and they'll change their mind, or hey, if it's not under 10 years, I won't like it, and they'll try it, and they're like, oh my gosh. So it's great to have that educational piece, and finally being able to get back to having those experiences and sharing those experiences for sure is a breath of fresh air for both of us.
And I think that's something Rick and I would like to impress upon everybody here is, if you look at that bottle, Scott's got it right there, front and center. We wanted this nice custom bottle. You can kind of see it on the video, but there's a big plus sign in the glass. And then the plus sign for the A&Co. Thank you, fellows. You guys make great hand models. I love it. So, we talk about all the time, we're Locke & Company, but company in the sense like, welcome to our home. Welcome to my garage, everybody who's watching, right? Locke in Colorado, Locke in community. Rick and I are involved with a bunch of nonprofits here locally. And one of the things that Rick and I did, growing up together, we like sharing events. There's a cliche in Colorado, no friends on a powder day when you're skiing. Well, first off, one, safety, right? But we love sharing those experiences, and we kind of grew up kind of having flasks on us. So, it's a flask-shaped bottle. But that plus sign, you want to show them?
It does fit in our back pockets. We can bring it on the river.
But not all pants. Not all pockets.
Not all pants,
Well, we wanted that flask, that kind of Old West meets New West feel. And the plus sign, you can kind of see it on all our marketing. When we worked for Jim Beam, there was kind of like this idea that we had and that we saw in the market was like whiskey had to be the old boys club in the back room smoking cigars, right? And we wanted to add people to the experience and create these educational pieces and, kind of join us by the fire, kind of how we started, to be more inclusive and add people to these experiences. So Rick and I are stoked to be getting back out in the market, to be sharing that and kind of creating community wherever we can. One thing we do locally, and we've sent them across the country as well, is we give away our 30-gallon barrels for free, and we give away our charred aspen wood for free. And I tell you, breweries love them. They're making all sorts of great beer because of it. And it's just fun to have friends in the industry doing stuff back and forth. And eventually we'll get those barrels back and make some whiskey finished with the beer we made and, kind of keep the cycle going. But that's what's so fun in Colorado. There's so many things to try, and, nationally, so many craft things that it's just great to create community out there and kind of, we're all in this together. We're all kind of kindred spirits, So it's fun. It's fun meeting people like you that have this passion. I'd say, the joke that we say is, how to make $1 million in the whiskey world? Start with 2, right? We're all doing this because it's fun.
Absolutely.
And if you aren't, you're doing it wrong, right? So.
But at the end of the day, that's a great attitude to start with, because the whole thing for me with the whiskey community and meeting people like you and all of that is just what it is that whiskey in itself does. It brings a lot of people together, and it's kind of, part of your motto of wanting to share this with the masses and have a good time and not be like pretentious and all of that. Because at the end of the day, for like you guys, it really kind of started with, sitting around a campfire, shooting the shit, having good conversation with friends, all of that. And it's really kind of what it's all about. So. Yeah.
And, for giving away the barrels selfishly, we like beer too. So we love to have having an Aspen Aged beer. There's some really good breweries making some Aspen Aged beers. And I'm still looking for a barbecue place to give some too, because I'd love to have some briskets. Rice Aspen wood. That'd be delicious.
But I'll tell you what, I think that the combination of this could be really cool with like not only like a nice stout, but like a nice IPA too. Like I can see like this not only being very good like in the winter, like in a nice like big powerful like imperial stout, but then like the summer flip when you get into those IPAs, the fruitiness of this, the that part of it could really be nice in that as well. So.
Yeah, we totally agree. I'm a big IPA fan, and Aspen Aged Rye IPAs. We've had some friends play with that, and do some limited release beers with that, but we want more and more of it. Absolutely, I'm ready. I'll trade barrels for beer all day long.
It seems like a pretty good trade, if you ask me.
We all win. We all win.
Hey, I know you guys had mentioned that there is a lot of competition out in Colorado, but is there still like a camaraderie between some of the distilleries there? You guys chat amongst one another and share some ideas, or is there any kind of camaraderie between you guys?
It's a great community out here. When we were doing our business plan, lots of the distillers we reached out to were very open and honest in helping us out. There's always a couple that wouldn't share information, and that's up to them. But the community, just getting our foot into creating the business plan, was really a breath of fresh air, because we didn't know what to expect, not being in the beer or craft distilling industry. So just from the get-go, we were shown how great the community is. When we're at events, we're always going over and chatting with each other, asking what they got new coming down, giving some taste of what we have coming down the R&D line. So it's been really, really nice to have that camaraderie.
Yeah, there's definitely people we can call, instantly, and they'll pick up the phone if we have a question on filtration or whatever it's going to be, distribution issues. And that includes all the distilleries, the wineries, the beer guys. Like, there's a huge community. It's, is like you're saying, Scott, you know, whiskey and beer and brew pubs and beer halls and distilleries, it is about sitting around and talking to people.
Yeah.
You know, opening up. I think that's what we've all been missing with COVID and everything. It's like, I just want to sit outside and have a drink with my friends. And and that's what this brings together. You know, Dan, you mentioned like 30, 40-year-old ryes and how that brings back a memory. You know, there's a lot of friends like, oh, I remember my dad drank, you know, Elijah Craig. You know, so whenever I drink that, I think of my dad.
Yeah.
You know, it's that experience and association that we're trying to create and keep forward. You know, for us out here, it's, you know, celebrating that powder day or that monster trout going fly fishing, or just, you know, the fact that you got the kids to bed on time, you know.
I'm with you on that one.
Cheers to that.
Well, I'm looking forward to so like over Memorial Day, usually we try to get together with a bunch of friends and do all that stuff, and I can almost guarantee that nobody that I know has had anything like this. So and we'll always usually get around a fire and this and that, and, you know, talk a bunch of shit and do all those other kind of fun things. And I'll be really interested to see how long it takes to get this bad boy polished off. My guess is going to go pretty quickly. So, but
yeah, I mean, I may finish mine tonight. I don't know. It's getting.
That's the fun part, is like, for me, a lot of times is giving stuff to people and watching their reaction and see what they say about stuff. I mean, especially when, you know, they'll have no idea what this is. Give it a try, and you know, that's the fun part for me. So,
I did want to touch base on something, guys. So I know there was some big news from the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. If you guys wanted to touch base on that really quick.
Yeah. So this was the first year we entered our rye whiskey into the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, and we brought home gold. So we're really proud of that. We got a gold in the Denver International Spirits Competition, which was great. So it's wonderful to get recognition from those some of those institutions and those accolades. But super proud about San Francisco being the first year we entered and getting that gold. So appreciate you bringing that up. But yeah, we're really proud about that.
Absolutely. Well, I really like this. Again, it just reminds me of just those. Just the older, like the 40s and 50s ryes. And it's very, like I said, there's some anise, there's some fruits, like you said, some baking spices in there, some cinnamon, very well-rounded, peppery kind of on the back. But it's very refreshing at the same time. And I think that has a lot to do with that Aspen, that Aspen being in there. It just kind of gives it that just refreshing taste. And I can only imagine, I've never had this around a campfire, but I can only imagine being around a campfire drinking this. It wouldn't last long, that's for sure.
No, it definitely
and drinking around.
Yeah.
We do get feedback like it tastes like going for a hike. It tastes like walking through the Rocky Mountains.
Yep.
Well, you know, and kind of one of the fun things about like this is like thinking about, you know, the winter and being like maybe, you know, sitting around a campfire in the snow or whatever it may be. But like with all the COVID stuff, it got people outdoors, you know, it got people out and doing those things. And it was a lot of stuff like that by us. Now I'm in Wisconsin, so there's a lot of outdoor stuff as well. But that was the cool part, is seeing people with different types of things and wanting to share it with people. And I don't know, I mean, that's the one thing for me, is that it's just whiskey for me is very much a community type of thing. You know, the more you can share it with people and allow somebody else to experience something that they wouldn't, I mean, I'm all for that. So
100%, but also don't be shy about having it on your own when you need it.
Yeah, that's very true. So thanks, Doug. Appreciate it, buddy. Richie, same to you.
Cheers.
You guys I think whoever ends up winning the stuff tonight is gonna hopefully get a really cool and unique, you know, experience. And that was the thing, because I mean, prior to this, I had one other thing that was, you know, Aspen finished. It wasn't for what I had. It wasn't rye, but I'll say this. I like what the Aspen wood does for me more on rye than I did necessarily the bourbon. Now, again, that's just my own opinion, but I like the balance of the rye spice and the sweetness that is imparted by the Aspen wood is really kind of a unique and just a delicious profile. So I'm a big fan of it.
Well, and I think I can guess who you're talking about, and they use Aspen staves, which I think goes very, very well with bourbon because it doesn't impart as much as these discs do, and I think they do a great job making that down there. For sure.
Yeah, and it was very different. Like, I mean, for me, these two, like, I wouldn't even try to compare them because, I mean, I think really they're apples and oranges in terms of what it is. So to try to do any comparison outside of the fact that it's just the aspen wood part of it, I really kind of dig what the rye and the aspen wood kind of combo is for my palate anyway. So
yeah, so if people did want to try it, it's I'm assuming Distillery 291.
It is.
Yeah, so they're down in Colorado Springs. They've been around for quite a while. They make some really good stuff, and you can see the difference between staves and discs if anyone out there is interested in trying, for sure.
Now here's something that was interesting. So like I kind of got the nickname the ham hock, and here's why. The reason why was when I was tasting a bourbon that they had that was finished with those aspen staves, there was something that I got, and DC, who's in the chat right now, he can vouch for all of this. But anyway, it was very much something that gave me the impression of like smoked ham. There was just this like smoky ham like characteristic that was coming off of it. I didn't want to say it because I thought it would make me sound like a total idiot. But when I was drinking it, it was like drinking almost like a liquid, like ham. I don't know what it was about it, but it was the most interesting thing I had ever had. So I don't know what it was. I'm not getting any ham bone or any ham hock on this. I can tell you that. So, no,
you gotta start. You're making me hungry.
Yeah. No, don't start sweating or anything on me. But
I'll tell you right now, guys. You guys have a lot of people who are very interested in this whiskey in this chat room right here. So,
well, thank you all for participating, and take a look for us for sure. We're excited to meet you all and have you experience it. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's great to be able to come on with you guys and share the story and share the spirit. And as Owen and I said, any tasting or any staff training, we just like feedback, or we take all feedback. We just want honest feedback.
Yep.
And we just want to hear what people truly think of our whiskey. And, if you don't like it and you can tell us what you don't like, we can help guide you into something you probably will like, because we know whiskey.
I think the results speak for themselves for me. So
yeah, it will not take long to kind of polish through this. It'll be fun to watch and listen to people kind of talk about this one just to see what their experience is. I wanted to ask you guys, so what was it about kind of that 90 proof level that made this kind of where you guys wanted to be? Did you kind of experiment with some different proofs and things like that?
Yeah, so at that 2 years of oak aging, that a little higher proof was a little bit of a stringency, I would say. So lowering that proof allowed it to open up. And I thought that 90 proof was just a lot more well balanced with the aspen wood at that point. And so, higher proof stuff we love, and that's why we're keep talking about these single barrels that are coming out, right? It's like 130 proof and tasting like candy. We're so excited. But, it's fun stuff for sure. That 90 proof I thought was just like a good balance of that spice, that feeling of that strength, but also gave it that rounded character. We wanted it to be complementary. Scott, you mentioned the layers that have been going on, and that's exactly what we were looking for. And we also wanted it to be approachable, right? Our whole motto is being creative and being inclusive. We didn't want just one thing that only a small segment would like. It is unique, so we knew we were already kind of narrowing ourselves down to rye and how we use that aspen. But we wanted it to be approachable and usable in a cocktail for sure. So that was kind of like the perfect balance for us.
Man, I can see it. Like this, I think would make a really fun and unique Manhattan for sure.
Yeah, as Owen was talking about, we like that perfect Manhattan because it brings down that sweetness of the sweet vermouth, which we think balances the aspen, and then that dry vermouth helps kind of highlight the rye.
Yeah.
The little tweak we like to do is, in addition to the normal Angostura bitters, it's just a touch of orange bitters in there as well.
Oh, I can see that.
Yeah,
because I still pull out a little bit of that like lemon, so maybe a little bit of lemon and some of that orange could be a cool combo. So
yeah, that citrus is like the bridge that connects everything.
Yeah,
so a little bit of orange bitters in there. It like brings out more of that spice and that lemon fruit note. And it's really nice. We do a fun old fashioned where we'll muddle some sugar in the bottom of the glass with a little water and orange bitters at that point. Put the big rock in there, pour the Locke Co over. We'll get an orange peel and squeeze that over a lighter. You get kind of that burnt orange essence, and it looks cool. You can actually YouTube it. It kind of sparks. So if you're at the campfire doing that or around the bar, you kind of see these little flakes of sparks off the squeezed orange peel. And then we'll do a lemon twist on there. So you get the bitters, the burnt orange, the lemon, and it's like a light, refreshing summer, like almost patio pounder, old fashioned.
Yeah, I think that'd be absolutely fantastic. So you mentioned before, so like either the distillery or your place where you guys kind of operate out of, can people come and visit, and like what's the experience like there?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, when we were doing the business plan and seeing if we could actually make this dream into a reality, we're looking at a lot of these craft distilleries, not only in Colorado, but across the country opening up. And, they had fabulous facilities, gorgeous stills, great tasting rooms. Well, that's all overhead that you got to, pay off and get those capital expenditures paid for. And so that's why you see them come out with gins and vodkas, because we could distill that today and essentially sell it tomorrow. So when we were looking at that, we enjoy those spirits, but we're rye whiskey guys. So we started looking for third parties that we could leave our barrels in. And so that's how we could wait from 2016 to 2018 for our whiskey and not have to make these other spirits to support us while we're waiting for our whiskey to age. So we do work out of a third party facility. It used to be in Aurora, and now they built a gorgeous one down in Colorado Springs. The company's called Private Label Distillery. They have a gorgeous view of the mountains, nice rooftop, top floor patio, some great, kind of sports bar, cigar lounge. So it's a great facility that have a wonderful tasting rooms, and so people can definitely visit there for sure.
Sounds like an awesome place to make some memories right there.
Exactly. We're down there, and it's a great view of Pikes Peak, and we love going down to Colorado Springs and having fun with all those guys.
I think you guys have a new kind of trademark in terms of what your whiskey can be called, # patio pounder.
I'll cheers to that for sure.
Yeah. Will has no idea. Will Henderson, he has no idea about the cold. He's down in Atlanta. So his idea of sitting around a campfire on a cool evening is probably 75 degrees. So get all bundled up, get your blankets out at 75, chilled. So all right, so we're getting close to an hour, guys. Thanks so much for just coming on and doing this, being gracious, talking about it, taking your time. For Dan and I, the important part was, once we got into tasting this and realized that we both really enjoyed it, we wanted to get you guys on, sooner than we did. And unfortunately, there was some little snags or whatever, but, to get you guys on, expose the brand a little bit more, make more people aware of what this is. And that was the fun part for us and wanting to share this with other people, because we knew just with the people we deal with that there were going to be a lot of people that unfortunately didn't know about it. Now, at least this maybe will give a few more people an opportunity of, trying it, where they can buy it, all of those good things. So, thanks for jumping in tonight and taking a little bit of your time. We appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. So if people are in Connecticut or Denver, they can definitely go to our website, which is lockeandcodistilling.com. Locke spelled as the bottle, L-O-C-K-E. His last name.
That's right.
And there's a find us page. You can see where you can get us at brick and mortar stores, whether it be a liquor store or a restaurant across the country. As well as there's a newsletter on there you can sign up for. We're going to start pumping out about these single barrel releases, so you can stay in tune with what we got coming on with the upcoming R&D releases that we've been working on.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, we appreciate it. Dan, you got anything else?
I do. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I do want to send you guys a sample of some of the 40s and 50s rye whiskey, just so you can kind of do a side-by-side comparison, just to kind of see what I was talking about, just to see how they compare in taste. So I will I'll reach out to you guys and send you a sample of that. But
we definitely won't return that to sender.
Off the truck. We'll get that there for sure. Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you everybody for participating and letting us, reach and talk and create more community. We just can't thank you guys enough. It's just great drinking with like-minded people. It's like we're around the fire, just having a good time.
You got it, absolutely, and that's why we wanted to do it. We wanted to share with what it was that we were trying with other people and all of that. So and thanks for being nice enough to provide a bottle to somebody who may otherwise never have done this. So, I think this will be kind of a cool thing, and not everybody always wants to do it, but I appreciate it. So, all right, Dan, I'm going to leave you in charge of it. So it looks like you super chatted before. So do you want to?
I pick. Yeah. Hopefully I pick myself.
Oh, you are? Okay. You're going to take an entry, you selfish bastard.
No. If I win, I'll give it to somebody else.
All right. That's fine. We'll include you in here. So let's see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 people. So, Dan, do you want to pick a number between 1 and 12, and then I'll reveal the winner.
8.
Number 8. Will Henderson.
That's funny.
Good old Will Henderson. So he gets to enjoy the Colorado whiskey in the Atlanta atmosphere. So nothing like enjoying that. So congrats, Will. That's awesome. So
we want to see the Atlanta Fire whiskey picture. That's
he'll get you. He'll get you one of those. He's good for that kind of stuff. So so that's awesome. But guys, thanks again for taking some time and just sharing a little bit about you, talking about your whiskey and where people can get it, all of that stuff. So thanks again for all of that, and hopefully we'll keep in touch, kind of follow what you guys are doing and just kind of have a good time with it. So real quick before we go, again, do you want to kind of just share where people can find you? You're on Instagram, all those things.
Yeah, so our Instagram's Locke Co Distilling. Same with Instagram, same with Twitter, just LOCKECO Distilling. And then our website's the LockeandCoDistilling.com.
Cool.
So we're on Facebook and Instagram. We run the accounts mostly, so it's us commenting back. So if you share a picture, it's us liking it and commenting. So we're pretty active on there, and again, just trying to make friends and have fun.
Awesome. And people can reach out if they've got questions and all that for you guys.
Absolutely. Please do.
Cool. Awesome. So, all right, guys, thanks again. I appreciate it. Dan, thanks for coming on tonight. Greatly appreciate you having. I know you and I wanted to do this and kind of just share our experience with it. So absolutely. I think people will really, be in for a pleasant surprise when they try it. So, I'm not trying to, BS or anything. I think it's a really fun, unique, whiskey and one that I think people, should be given a try to for sure. So, all right, we'll see everybody next Tuesday. Thanks everyone for all the super chats and being involved, participating in tonight's live stream. Greatly appreciate all that. We'll see you next Tuesday. I'll probably have a little bit more of a recap video of my kind of trip I just took to Kentucky to do some barrel picking and all of that. So, so with that being said, remember, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers, guys, and we'll see everybody next Tuesday.
Cheers.
Cheers.